Hello, Laverne here, and thank you for joining me. May this video be a blessing to you, and may it honor and glorify God in His kingdom. This is my second video on the topic of the Tucson, Arizona shooting. The man who shot and killed 6 people and wounded the congresswoman. Now, in my first video, I addressed Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist Church. I explained that this man does not represent Christianity, that he plans to picket the funeral of the 9-year-old girl, and he's doing so because he believes that the shooter was acting on behalf of God, that he was actually doing God's work, and that God had sent this man to take the lives of these people. He condemns these people, claiming that they deserved what they got. And his reasoning? Well, in the case of the judge, because there was another judge, some other judge who ruled against Phelps in a court case, then because this other judge ruled against him, this man who was shot for that reason. And the 9-year-old girl, according to Phelps, she was killed deservingly so because she belongs to a Catholic family. She is Catholic and therefore deserved to die. So Phelps is not a Christian. He might claim to be Christian, but is in no way Christian. He is not a follower of Christ. That's what I explained in the first video. Now in this one, I'm going to explain what actually was at play, that there was much more at play than what most people are considering. It's something I haven't heard talked about on YouTube, and so I would like to address it. And that has to do with spiritual warfare. Now, before I get into explaining exactly what took place, I'm going to talk about some other ideas that are out there. Now, Phelps, according to him, it was God, that God was guiding the hand of this man. Other people are saying that it had to do with political rhetoric that is, spread on the news and the general media and so on, that you have the left against the right, liberal against the conservative, and because of some of the things being said in the media by people such as Rush Limbaugh and Sarah Palin, and so on, that this man was acting out because of basically what he hears on the airwaves. Other people are simply saying he was mentally unstable. They look to the fact that he was kicked out of school, that the instructors in the school approached his parents and told them this, that he had to basically get himself fixed before he could come back to school. Others are blaming the parents that they didn't keep a good enough eye on this 22-year-old. Other people are blaming gun registry and so on, that there needs to be tighter controls. So there's all kinds of blame going around. There's no shortage of people to point a finger at. What a lot of people are unaware of, and I'm going to include a link to the only video I've heard talk about this, is the fact that there actually is a connection between the two by way of YouTube. If you watch the video that I'm providing the link to, this person explains that if you look at the shooter's YouTube account and you look at the congresswoman's YouTube account, what you find is that she only subscribed to 2 people. And out of the 2 people she subscribed to, one of them was the shooter. So there was some kind of contact between the two by way of YouTube. Now, I'm sure the police are going to be investigating this, and one day soon we may find out that there had been some private messages sent between the two, and that the shooter for some reason felt insulted perhaps in one of these messages, and he took it out on her. Now, something else a lot of people are saying is that it could have been anti-Semitic, that because she was Jewish. It's known now that her mother was Christian and her father Jewish, and that she promoted the fact that she herself was Jewish. So that could always be a factor. This man hated religion, and this is a growing trend and something that actually needs to be talked about here, and that is the fact that more and more atheists are being very outspoken against religion. There are many videos out there now that claim that religion is absolute evil and needs to be stomped out. Dawkins says these kinds of things. Sam Harris. We see Pat Donnell. on YouTube here. There's all kinds of people who are spouting this rhetoric, talking about violence and making it sound, even though they may not actually say go out and cause harm to these people. It's okay to be violent against Christians because of all the things they've done in the past. No, people are very careful not to overstep, what is acceptable. However, they go as far as they can. And when they make claims that religion is evil, that the people who are of faith are evil, some even go so far as to claim that parents who are teaching their children about faith, about God, hell, and sin, and salvation, that the parent is actually committing a type of pedophilia, that they are raping the child's mind, and that it shouldn't be allowed. More and more people are expressing this kind of thought, that religious parents, people of faith, are actually committing a kind of child abuse when they teach their children their faith. And so then it can be no wonder that more and more we are seeing that atheists are resorting to violence against people of faith. It's a growing trend. It was only 3 or 4 weeks ago that a YouTuber by the name of Healthyaddict made a video on this topic. And she made it because of another shooter who did this very same kind of thing. Left a note saying that he hated religious people, and then went on a shooting rampage. We are seeing this more and more, that people who are atheists, some claim to be humanists, some secularists, and whatever term they want to put to them, but the fact is they hate people of faith and they hate religion, and they are taking their aggressions out on them in the form of murder-suicide. I talked about in my video response to Healthyaddict that it is now known, and is simply an accepted fact, that atheists make up a disproportionate number of people who are committing suicide. You look at the suicide rates, and those people who commit suicide, the portion of them who are atheists is much higher than that of people of faith. And now we are seeing that these people, instead of just killing themselves, they are going on rampages and taking out as many other people as what they can. And in the case of this shooter in particular, it was taking out, for the most part, people of faith. And this is not a coincidence. When we look at all the people who were in this crowd, and we look at the victims who were actually killed, you'll see that this could not simply have been a coincidence. Now, I know a lot of people will say, yes, it was. It was simply coincidence. You can't say it was anything else, anything different, because there's no physical evidence that this man had a grudge against any of these people. But this is where the spiritual aspect comes into play. When we understand spiritual warfare as it's described in Scripture, we see that this is exactly the kind of thing that would happen if somebody was possessed. Now, when it comes to spiritual warfare, a person can either be oppressed or possessed. Now, possession is outright being controlled by an evil spirit, whereas oppression is they're oppressing you in ways such as bringing about feelings of depression, of worthlessness, self-worth, and that kind of thing. And what happens in spiritual warfare is that we open the door to these evil spirits through unbelief, through sin. An evil spirit, a demon, is allowed to start oppressing and then eventually possessing us. In the case of this man, I know a lot of people want to say, no, it was strictly that he was mentally unstable. But let's look at the victims. The congresswoman was Jewish. The judge who was killed had just come from Mass, so he was Catholic. He had also recently ruled in favor of illegal aliens against a rancher. There were death threats against him, but he was ruling in favor of these people who couldn't protect themselves. They needed this legal protection. He was showing all the signs of being a true Christian. When we look at the girl, she was a Catholic, 9 years old, but more importantly, and we need to look at this, is that she was one of 50 girls who was included in a book that was published showing the faces of 50 babies that were born on 9/11. On the day of 9/11, the publisher or the person who wrote the book looked at a child that was born in each state and called these children the faces of hope. And this girl was one of these 6 who were killed. This is not a coincidence. One of the gentlemen, I believe he was 76 or something, who threw his body over his wife to protect her, he was killed. He was, I'm not sure if he was an actual minister or just an elder in the church, but he played a big part in the church. So he was Christian. And not just Christian, but he was someone who was walking the walk. Now, when we look at what we know about evil spirits, they can pinpoint people like this. So if this man was possessed, as I'm suggesting, then the spirit that possessed him would pinpoint these people and would target them to be killed. And that's exactly what we seen has happened. Now, in the case of the other victims, I can't say anything about them. I haven't been able to find any information one way or another about their belief system. Although Zimmerman was, he played a big part in volunteer work in helping the disadvantaged himself. Now, was he Jewish like his employer? I don't know. Was he was he practicing and so on? I can't say. And I can't say about the other 2 victims as well who were killed, whether they were religious or not. But when we look at the people we do know about, and we look at the kind of lives that they were living and what they represented, I believe it becomes evident. And you look at the incoherency of the man who was the shooter, I think it becomes pretty evident that this is a case of spiritual warfare and of this man being possessed, getting a hold of a gun, and taking out as many Christians and Jews that he could. And this is exactly what we would expect to see from someone, or from an evil spirit. Take example of Scripture, of the man who was said to have had the legion in him. He was very violent himself. People were afraid of him. Now, if he'd had a gun and access to a gun like this man did, then it's very probable that he would have done the very same kind of thing. This anti-religious sentiment is growing in the world. More and more atheists are going to resort to this kind of thing. It's no longer just people of Islam faith who are strapping bombs and committing suicide in a fashion that can take out as many others as possible. We are seeing atheists doing the very same thing, taking out their anger, their hate on those that they hate the most, that being people of faith. All right, as always, I look forward to comments and messages. Till next time, peace and blessings.